What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 409 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week, where we will be breaking down some of the current events, the rumors, the news, the gossip, and anything else that went down in the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment over the past few days that we feel like talking about here before getting into all the other things that are happening this week, because this is Hell Week of WWE and pro wrestling in general. Or if you don't have to do that type of stuff and you could just sit back and enjoy, man, it's a hell of a week. And we have so many things to break down here. I am your host as always, Tony Mango, and joining me is Callum Wiggins.
Oh, you lucky people.
Yeah, we got a rare treat here. When was the last time you were on the hot tags?
They're pretty cold when that happened. So, they've warmed up significantly with my appearance here.
There are just so many things to get heated about, and that is not just a pun. It's also our mood about this, because, man, we were talking before we started recording here. This went from one of those, like, we got a lot of things to talk about, and this is kind of fun, and this thing could be interesting, and that to being like, you ready to bitch? It's really kind of what it is. And I will admit that part of it is that I'm on edge from having worked so much and getting started over an even heavier work week and little stupid things happening, outside of that spectrum and in that spectrum. But we're both on the same page as far as there's still some stuff to run down here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's too much happening this week that it's just too much to discuss, really. That we'll see how much we can get through in this one recording.
Yeah, and there are things that we're not going to really be including in the hot tags that we were going to be contributing towards the discussion later on for the Hell in a Cell predictions, because that's coming up. I don't know how we're going to do predictions, because they don't announce a goddamn fucking match as part of this. We only have 3 matches on the card as far as tonight goes, but we'll see how that works out on Wednesday or so. And later on, obviously, throughout the week, we have SmackDown and we have NXT, so we don't know exactly what has happened for that yet, and that's all stuff we'll loop in later. But no matter what we're talking about here, I want to invite everybody who is listening to drop a comment below and tell us what your thoughts are on all this, and what your thoughts are on our thoughts on this. So if you're on the audio-only platforms like iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and Spotify and Anchor and Podbean and so on and so forth, you can't really leave a comment. So what you're going to want to do is head over to YouTube, and if you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button, ring that little bell for the notifications, hit that like button on the video as well, and keep the discussion going in the comments. And here's 2 things that I want to just throw out there that we're not really going to talk about, but it's worth talking about. It's premiere week for WWE, but plenty of other wrestling shows have other content that's happening, and Impact has moved to Tuesday nights to fill in that gap of SmackDown. And now, today, NWA announced that they've got a show that's going to be happening. It's NWA Power. And it's going to happen on YouTube and Facebook and all the other kind of things that go along with that. Really quickly, any thoughts about any of those things?
Well, Impact moving to Axis just means that they'll be able to be exposed to a wider audience, which is good for them. And in terms of NWA Power, I haven't watched a huge amount of NWA since it kind of had it's had a resurgence in the last couple of years. I might check out a few bits and pieces of it because they seem to be doing things in a slightly different way, which I'm not adverse to. I'm not too sure about the name.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what about the name? Because I've seen a lot of people hate on it, and I'm kind of indifferent. I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
I think it fulfills the role of being a one-word wrestling TV show name, and it doesn't do any more than that. It doesn't do any less than that to me.
Part of me kind of likes the logo, with the kind of signal-y R kind of wave going on, but it also kind of makes me wish that they called it Power.
I think they're embracing their old school roots, which I guess is fine, really. But trying to just update things a little bit more with a bit more of a contemporary wrestling style, which I assume they'll produce.
They're going to go halfway into the hipster side of things. The belt, that's another thing. They put a new belt out there for the women's title, and it's very reminiscent of their old women's title, which I love almost entirely, except for that little viewport with a locket kind of necklace picture thing going on. I think that's kind of lame. But
it's original at least. I don't see that's. I mean, oh no, I say it's original. Obviously, that was the way they were doing things in the past, but I don't see any other title belt nowadays doing that kind of thing. So at least it stands out on that regard.
yeah, it's like their version of the side plates, kind of.
Mm.
All you got to do is throw a little picture in there, and it kind of works, you know. And if you like the old school stuff, and you know that's what you're more into, then I'm sure that you absolutely love it. I hate that title that has like the North American thing going on. I think that's ugly as hell, but whatever. Let's talk really quickly some other things about some different shows that are being moved around and stuff. Now, I mentioned before, we've got Friday is going to be SmackDown now. They made it official that 205 Live is going to be following SmackDown on Friday nights. But they also announced that NXT UK is, for some reason, moving to Thursdays at 3 p.m. It's been Wednesdays at 3 p.m. They did have a little bit of a window there where it was like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. or 1 p.m. or like they kind of like moved it around quite a bit for a little while. And they ran double episodes and all this other kind of crap. But I don't quite get the move to Thursday. I'm wondering what that's all about.
I think they're just trying to. Essentially it was the only day that didn't have any wrestling on it. So they decided, okay, we're going to capitalize on that one as well. I guess they think that they have a big enough US viewing audience to try and separate it away from the NXT and the AEW stuff and just put it on its own merits on a day where no other WWE product is going on.
Yeah, because there's Total Divas, there's Ms. and Mrs., there's plenty of other things that are beyond that, and I guess that's, at the very least, maybe they're just trying it out and just seeing if they can do that, or maybe they're moving that window so that they can put something else on there, and I really hope that's not the case, because I need to have some kind of time to myself.
I'd be surprised they did it. I think it's just Wednesday's becoming too hectic, so they decided to just move it over to Thursday instead.
That's probably it. They are still pre-taping it, and we're going to do another set of tapings in the next few days, because they only have next week's this week's is the only one that they can really do, and then beyond that point they need to record some more. So I guess we might get a little bit of an indication of how that's going to work and if there's any changes when they start doing that. But this week at the very least, that's the only thing that they have to announce for NXT UK. But we do have some other shows that are in the mix. We've got WWE Backstage, which has been confirmed for FS1. It is going to be hosted by Renee Young and Booker T. It's going to be on Tuesdays at 11 p.m. starting November 5th. A lot of reports that CM Punk could be in the mix for this too. That's another thing that's kind of like, which one do you unpack first, kind of, you know?
Well, if you start with just the original story of Renee Young and Booker T being the host of this, I think moving Renee Young back into a hosting position is the right move. It was quite clear that the commentary thing was not working out as well as they probably hoped it would be. And now that they have a show which has, if you will, I wish they didn't look at it like this, but they do seem to look at things this way of having a show that does have a female quota filled in terms of NXT now being on the USA Network. They don't need to live by that crutch, essentially. And that means that Renee Young can move from the announce table, which she's still going to be doing on it's a part-time basis now on SmackDown.
Yeah, that's another thing we got to talk about too. But are you feeling like you're even going to watch this? I can't imagine this being worth anybody's time.
Well, I don't see. It seems odd that it's going to be on FS1, so it's the Fox show, but it's happening the day after the USA show.
Right? Yeah, and it's 11 p.m. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna tune in to because let's be honest, this is a recap show. This is WWE Now, but FS1 wanted a show. And they've had a million of these, and they all suck. Like, I can understand the ones that are for different countries. Like, I can't even fucking pronounce it. The one that, like, Natalie Mamo and, God, I'm blanking on his name, too. Like, the ones from, like, India, and, like, there's WWE en Espanol with oh God, I'm blanking on her name too. The one that I was talking about with the Sexy Superstars tournament. Like, you know, you want to do those, and you have like Afterburn and Bottom Line and all these kind of things. There's like 19 of these at this point. And now the biggest primary one of them is WWE Now. And they're just going to do another one? Just going to slap it together again? Like, really? Why would I bother wasting my time at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night to watch a thing that's going to be like, hey, if you didn't watch Monday Night Raw and 4 days ago's episode of SmackDown, let's show you the recaps that we showed you recaps of on that show a bunch of times and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be the most likely. They might have a few wrestlers appear on the show itself, and it might be a launching pad for certain minor storylines. I don't think they'll do anything too major on it. But it just seems odd that it's called like WWE Backstage when it's on a night where there's no WWE show taking place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's coming straight off of the show that's just taken place and, okay, now we're just going to be wandering around backstage, talking to the wrestlers, see what's happening, that type of thing. It's just a completely different day in a completely separate studio.
It would make so much more sense if this was after SmackDown.
But they can't do that because they've got 205 Live.
Right, and that they would have just done Talking Smack, and then they got rid of Talking Smack because they were like, well, what's the fucking point of this, even though it was fun. So they're just like circling the same drain all over again, and I can't imagine that this is going to be continuing for all that long. Like, they also, that too, this is the other thing, it's premiering November 5th. You're gonna wait a month for this. What the fuck is the point in that? It's not even the week after the premiere of SmackDown. Like, come on, guys.
I guess they just had to wait for the FS1 schedule to clear up.
That's so crazy to me. All of this just feels like it's so... 2019 and the tail end of 2018 feels like the most haphazard point in wrestling that I can ever remember. It's just a series of, like, throwing something out there and having it either stick and be ignored, or having it be like nobody even looks to see if it's stuck, or it sticks and people move it. It's all over the place.
Well, I mean, I don't see this on the list of hot tags, so you might as well just allude to it quickly that AEW's Dynamite, their Dynamite show, they only just today finalised the deal for a Canadian TV deal.
Jesus God.
And it debuts on Wednesday.
And it's not like this stuff can be... I mean, obviously this stuff is hard. It's not the type of thing where it's like, oh, it's the same as, you know, passing the salt on a table or something like that. You got to go through legal channels, and you got to do through all these kind of things and stuff like that. Obviously that stuff's difficult. But you plan ahead. And it shouldn't have been like that they were filing for the trademark for AEW Dynamite like 2 weeks ago, when it's like, that's when you should be having all of your, like, finalized graphics already done. Not that you need to make sure you're locking down the name, or like you're locking down at this point 2 days before your premiere whether or not you're going to show up on Canadian television. That should have been months ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff is just happening very quickly, and people are just forgetting stuff, especially on the AEW side of things, because of their overall lack of experience of doing this. So I don't know whether I can obviously overlook it. It's just one of these things, and at the end of the day, the Canada thing wouldn't have affected either of us from watching it anyway. But it does feel like a pretty big oversight to leave until the last minute, because it puts you in a bad negotiating position.
Yeah, like, you look a little weak on the production side, and you can tell that you're desperate to get on television, so the Canadian TV deal could just be like, well, we're not going to offer you, like, anything, really.
Yeah, so at least they managed to get it there in the end. I'm not too sure, this backstage thing, in terms of the CM Punk rumours, I mean, that's the only thing that would draw people to this show, would be that CM Punk takes on a role only on this. But you'd have to think that how much money they're probably going to have to pay CM Punk to take on a role like this. They wouldn't just use him for backstage.
And that whole thing brings on a whole bunch of other questions too, because that would be that he would be working for Fox, not for WWE. And the reports that are talking about this say that Backstage is not a WWE show, that they're not going to be controlling the narrative. And I mean, obviously they're going to have influence of it because that's the whole point. But this is ultimately like a Fox thing. And if Punk were to be hired by Fox to work for WWE, he is working for WWE, but he's not necessarily back under the same umbrella. And what would be the point in bringing him back? Because he would just be like, hey, remember CM Punk from 10 years ago or something, like that's kind of strange. And would he do that? Like, that would be the thing that would bring him back, is talking about the current storylines? That doesn't seem like that makes any sense. He doesn't even watch it,
Well, we don't know if he doesn't watch it. We only go by what his word is, what he's saying in terms of, I think he's still, well, I can't say for certain, don't know the guy or anything like that, but I assume he has at least some sort of passing interest, considering he was on that, what was it, that indie show where he turned up in a mask and attacked somebody. So I assume he still has at least a passing interest in wrestling. And he could probably clue himself up pretty quickly if he was to take on this role. I think you just take on this role if the money's good and it means that he gets to add to his presenting repertoire.
Maybe that's the case, yeah.
Further down the line. Maybe he knows that he can get familiarity due to being a former major WWE superstar. And if he manages to draw eyes to the product, it increases his value in the eyes of Fox. Because imagine if it's just Renee Young and Booker T, people go, I might check it out, but it's not going to be anything important. Then if CM Punk is on it's like a third host on top of that, then people might just tune in to see, why is he on this? What is he going to do? Is he going to do something interesting this week? And that would indicate to Fox that, the CM Punk guy, we need to give him another role somewhere, because he's clearly he has a lot of fan attention on his own.
And then he starts talking about hockey, and that's
that's
the ultimate goal.
Well, yeah, either hockey or UFC. That would probably be. It wouldn't be UFC anymore because they're in ESPN. Things fluctuates, but I assume there's some sort of MMA going on in that Fox is showing at this point.
Do they have anything with Bellator? I don't know what Bellator ends up doing. Yeah, I don't follow MMA.
I don't follow it closely enough, but I know that UFC is with ESPN now because they used to be with Fox, so they might have something. If not, you could probably find something in a baseball or a baseball field.
He's gonna be the main person for XFL. That's what it'll be.
Yeah.
God, it's all over the place, and we have a month now to wait until we even find out what's happening with that. But I just kind of can't picture that being worth anybody's time, and it wouldn't be so jarringly meh to me if they didn't have 10 or a dozen other alternatives to it. I think that people are losing track of the way that media is changing, and if by now you don't watch Monday Night Raw and you don't watch SmackDown and you don't watch NXT and whatever the case may be, you probably just don't want to watch it, because you can get the WWE Network. You can watch the network shows on demand, and pretty much anybody who watches regular TV watches it with DVR at this point, if you don't watch it live. And by that point, you're not going to care about the storylines, and you're not going to care about catching up with what you missed out on, because if by some chance you miss an episode of Monday Night Raw, which one are you going to more likely do? And drop a comment below, everybody that is thinking about this. Are you more likely to go, crap, I missed Raw because I had to stay for a later shift of work, or I had a dinner date to go to, or whatever the hell it was, doesn't matter. So let me catch up on what it was. I'm going to wait until tomorrow night at 11 o'clock and listen to the fabricated recap that they're going to put on WWE Backstage on FS1. Or are you going to have already DVR'd it and skip through? Or are you just going to go on the internet and click on the YouTube and see the highlights? Or go to a page like smarkonmoment.com and look under the highlights coverage and go, oh, okay, that guy beat that guy, that woman beat that woman, and this happened. Oh, okay, so it looks like I didn't really miss all that much. You're not going to do the FS1 thing. That
No.
used to be the case 20 years ago. Yeah, you would.
Yeah, that was the only other place you could do it.
Mhm.
And unless you wanted to just like catch up with other stuff. Like I said, the only thing that would entice people to go on this one is if it has content of its own, which you don't get on the other two shows.
Right.
And we'll have to wait and see whether it does produce something like that.
So that's all kind of up in the air, but also is this other show, The Bump, or WWE The Bump, whatever it is. It's supposed to be coming Wednesday mornings at 10 o'clock, starting October 2nd, which we know less about that show, and it's happening sooner than the WWE Backstage one, which is kind of funny. And all we really know about it is it's supposed to be a quote-unquote morning talk show style series, and that they have a Twitter account where they shared some bloopers of Caleb Braxton's audition. I have no idea what the hell this is supposed to be.
No, I don't have a clue either. If it's just some sort of morning chat show, then I imagine it won't. It'll be something fairly innocuous, like nothing too groundbreaking. Because at least with the WWE Backstage thing, it has the advantage of being at night, so you can kind of go with the thing that it's being, or it's slightly more edgy content. Whereas if you're just doing a morning show, it's as PG as it gets. And I don't think it'll be particularly insightful or interesting. Just based on, even if it's called The Bump, which is, I imagine, what like older people think they're doing when they go to a disco or something. It's like, oh, we're going to go down and do the bump with the young'uns or whatever. Just, yeah, it's a silly name.
And yeah, obviously it's an insider term, and it's kind of like, well, why don't we call it The Bump? Kind of the way that I've got like my e-wrestling news and Bleacher Report content that I post on the homepage of Smark at Moment. I put it under the foreign objects banner because it's like, nah, it's kitschy, whatever, you know. And advertisement stuff is outside interference because that's a joke and whatever too. But like The Bump is kind of like, okay, that doesn't strike me as morning talk show. Also, I don't even know when this is. Like, I mean, I know this is Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock on October 2nd. Where? I don't know if it's YouTube. I don't know if it's USA. I don't know if it's WWE Network. Facebook.
I'm sure they figured it out. Just whether they want to tell us about it is the other thing. Maybe that's the enticing thing about it, that you have to find it yourself. Like it's a challenge that you actually have to find where they're broadcasting The Bump.
That's like, are they going to do the shit that I did with the Silent Hour show, where I was telling people I just debuted a brand new show and you might be able to listen to it?
Yeah, it would just be a case of like you search for, I don't know how many hours to find it, and then you finally find it and you're super excited, and then you see Caleb Braxton and Sam Roberts talking, and then you swiftly move away. Whatever.
Yeah, this is just, I haven't checked out their stuff from this Twitter account, but it all kind of looks like it's just more of like the WWE Now type stuff, like just some innocuous backstage interview person standing in front of a stationary camera and just kind of going like, hey, it's The Bump, it's whatever. So that's like, all right, so that's a 2-minute YouTube clip then? Like, that's your show? That seems like, why am I bothering with that too? Why wouldn't I just, I don't know. None of this, again, 2019, they're just throwing things out there, and we're going to get like, by this time next year, I think the things are going to look drastically different again. Maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe they're just going to keep this as going as long as they possibly can, but
I think they're just throwing a load of content out there and seeing what sticks.
Mm-hmm. And another change that we've got going on right now is the commentary teams. They already started this with Monday Night Raw, and we're going to see the later changes with some other things. But the Monday Night Raw commentary team now is Vic Joseph from 205 Live and NXT UK. Dio Madden, who has been only for like a couple of weeks on 205 Live, and I think that he's done some main event, but let's be honest, whoever watches Main Event to even know. Still don't even know what day or what time it's on Hulu. I think it's Fridays at some point, but God knows. And Jerry the King Lawler. So we got a former wrestler who has been a part of the commentary team for a long time and doesn't really want to do it, and it's already spoken of as being like, this is a temporary gig. A brand new wrestler in the Performance Center, who I guess he's just kind of given up on the idea of being a wrestler at this point. That's kind of a shame. And Vic Joseph, who pretty swiftly came in and became, he was Tom Phillips' underling, kind of. Like, there's like just Michael Cole, and then there's Tom Phillips, and then there's Vic Joseph. There was a pecking order. And suddenly he takes over the Michael Cole role. It's like, there's a leap, you know? The NXT side of things is going to stay the same that it was. It's Beth Phoenix, Nigel McGuinness, and Mauro Ranallo. And the SmackDown team is going to be the old Raw team of Corey Graves, Michael Cole, and Renee Young. Now, here's the first thing I really kind of want to point out about this that I find really interesting. Their classifications when they put out this press release. They had down that for NXT, for instance, Mauro Ranallo is play-by-play. Makes perfect sense. He is. And Nigel McGuinness and Beth Phoenix are analysts. Better than saying color commentary, whatever. For Monday Night Raw, Vic Joseph and Dio Madden are being classified as play-by-play. And Jerry Lawler is an analyst. So I'm really curious why Dio Madden isn't an analyst as well, but again, not even the weirdest thing. SmackDown's got Michael Cole as play-by-play, Corey Graves as analyst, and Renee Young is special contributor. What the fuck does all this mean?
Well, I'm guessing the term analyst is being dedicated to people who have in-ring experience. So much to lean on to. As far as I'm aware, I think Dio Madden was originally brought in as a wrestler, but transitioned over into a commentary role, but he's never competed in any sort of real capacity for WWE. Whereas you have, obviously, Jerry Lawler is a long-term wrestling legend. Nigel McGuinness has wrestled for many years. Beth Phoenix, Corey Graves before his injury. So they all fit into the analyst bracket, whereas everyone else would be considered play-by-play because their job is to be a commentator. Obviously, everyone's job is to be a commentator, but their only role, the only reason they're working for WWE is to be a commentator. They had never had any other previous roles or any other previous inclinations other than to be a commentator. And I think the special contributor role is to make it seem like Renee Young is still involved in the announce table thing, even though they kind of don't want her to be.
That's what's kind of strange about this, and we'll see how it works out when they do it on Friday, but I would have thought just by the breakdown of, I looked it up just while you were talking, and when he used to go by the name Brennan Williams, Dio Madden, over the course of his career in NXT, he's wrestled 119 matches. Now, they're all house show things, so it's not like he was, popping up and fighting Johnny Gargano on NXT TV or anything like that, but he wrestled 119 matches. That's like, he's technically a wrestler, and the most recent one that he wrestled was on August 24th. So it's not like he completely abandoned that or anything, as far as I guess it seems. I don't know, maybe he did after that, but I would think that he would be classified as an analyst in that regard and just be like, well, he's a performer, and we can put him in there. But if not, that maybe he would be under special contributor because he wouldn't be play-by-play at the same time because that's Vic Joseph's role. And then if she's special contributor and she's on the commentary and she's doing the exact same thing as what Dio Madden's doing, then it's like, are you making her special contributor because you just want her to be an analyst or something? Like, that's the whole thing seems so nitpicky, kind of.
Yeah, I just think that they're names for the sake of names. Like, it might be just one of those kicks that Vince McMahon's on right now, that he wants to call people analysts as opposed to color commentators, because color commentators sounds too much like wrestling.
No indication by the way, of what's going to happen with Tom Phillips. No indication of Byron Saxton. Oh, well, there is a little bit about Tom Phillips, and mentioned
They
that.
said he's going to be doing some producing backstage.
Yeah, it's like, well, what does that mean? And that he might be coming back and replacing Jerry Lawler on Monday Night Raw in December, which kind of seems a little strange to me that their team would be Tom Phillips as an analyst type of role, because he's not a wrestler, and he would fill the same role as Vic Joseph, and you can't have 3 play-by-play people. That seems all strange. So that, I don't buy into that report all that much, that he would go over to Raw. I think that if anything, he would maybe replace Renee on SmackDown or something.
I've heard more speculation along the lines that it would be Nigel McGuinness that would move over to Raw.
And that would at least be like, you'd put an analyst in there. That would make sense.
Because, well, at least from what I've heard from the dirt sheets and stuff like that, it's obviously taken with a grain of salt, but Heyman wasn't keen on the idea of bringing Lawler as part of the announced team. He wanted it to be a 2-man team with Vic Joseph and Dio Madden. And Vince didn't want 2 completely fresh, inexperienced people hosting the flagship show, as it were. So he thought that Lawler needed to be there to steady the ship, at least on a temporary basis.
And Byron's just completely out there, so maybe he falls into some of the kind of things that like David Otunga and Booker T have done in the past, where it's like, well, we'll throw you in there if we need somebody, but at the same time, you're basically just going to be a pre-show panelist type of person. Or maybe they have another role for him. Maybe he's doing some kind of backstage producing stuff. I know Michael Cole has said numerous times that he wanted to get out of that and do more producing. So maybe Tom Phillips comes in and he replaces Cole on SmackDown and they can do that, which would seem kind of strange to me too. Mickie James is apparently in the mix for this too. She did something for Main Event, and I guess you can watch it at some point. It has to air somewhere. So that's another story, is that maybe Mickie James is going to come in and she's going to fill in the Jerry Lawler role, or she's going to replace Renee Young on SmackDown. That could be good. That could be bad. I don't know. I've never heard her on commentary. Kind of a shame if she just wraps up her in-ring career as well. All that, again, is just that whole, like, let's make a bunch of changes. Let's see what happens. Then let's continue to make a whole bunch of changes.
Yeah, I can't really see too much else beyond that, really. The commentary teams, I don't know how much they'll change going forward, but like you say, there's been a lot of things moved around, and I mean, who are the commentators now on 205 Live? Vic Joseph still? Is Vic Joseph and Dio Madden still part of 205 Live of Aiden English, or will that change? Is that where Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton end up falling?
Yeah, like Dio Madden and Vic Joseph and Aiden English were the 3 that were doing that. But it seems kind of weird that they would tell them to travel to Friday nights and be like, you 3 need to do that. Now Aiden English could still continue doing that, and maybe that's where they would put Byron and Tom. But then what a slap in the face kind of to be like, hey, Tom and Byron, you guys have been doing like Raw and SmackDown for all these times and NXT and stuff like that. Now you're on 205 Live, which we're not even sure if we're going to keep anymore. Like, that'd be like, oh, God, man, just stab him in the gut while you're at it.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's better or worse than just keeping them on the sidelines until the right opportunity.
How did you feel about tonight's Raw commentary team? I thought that there's an understanding level of awkwardness because they've never worked together before, but to be honest, the person who I thought was falling short the most was Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, Jerry was... It was weird because it was still kind of the same Jerry Lawler that you used to, but in a very different way. In that you still have the that type of like just exclamation and the same these old corny jokes like was saying like to enter the like an ugly contest, and they said sorry, no professionals, and he said it was such little conviction that you just feel like he's there collecting a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a mixture of the stuff where like when Becky Lynch was coming up, like the old Jerry Lawler, he obviously would never get away with this nowadays, but the old Jerry Lawler, if you saw Becky Lynch standing in front of him in a pair of leather pants, would have just been going crazy. But he was just like, no, Becky, just don't do this. You said you weren't going to do this. And it's just like, okay, what, you were talking to her backstage about all this stuff? He comes across as, it was a very weird vibe coming from him.
I got this weird feeling that he was trying to be Michael Cole.
Yeah, or like a Jim Ross of the old time, really. Like, he was trying to be the concerned babyface commentator, which is so not what his role has been in the past, where he excelled. And I'm not saying I don't want the lecherous, like, really corny, over-the-top Jerry Lawler to come back, but he was so much more comfortable in a heel role.
Yeah, you could tell that that's his like thing is heel commentator who can make jokes and can laugh at people, poke fun, seem on the smarmy, weaselly side of things. Not the guy that's like it didn't even make any sense. Just even if you ignore the fact that it doesn't seem like it's him, just in pure logic, it doesn't make any sense that he was like, I'm surprised that Becky Lynch is coming out. And then a minute later, hey, we talked backstage about how you weren't going to climb on top of the commentary table and taunt Sasha Banks. And I'm going to repeat it 6 times. And then also repeatedly tell the audience, well, she might interfere after the match.
Well, I think it's also along the lines of him constantly screaming about how you're beating up a teenager when Dominic's 22 years old. So,
yeah, what the hell was that?
So he clearly has no idea what Dominic's age is and was just guessing that he was a teenager.
Oh, look at this. He's beating up a teenager. Dude's older than like half the fucking NXT roster, it seems. We're breaking down Raw at some point tonight with this thing too. But so obviously we're gonna talk more about that. And really quick reminder for everybody, if you want to just kind of chime in on some different things here and there, and you want to toss out some things directly, you could do it on Facebook and Twitter. There's some other ways to do that. Follow the social media accounts and stuff. I got Smark Out Moment, I got Fanboys Anonymous, I got Tony Mango, I got a Mango Tree, Callum's got Wigmeister 14. Hit us up with your thoughts on some random things here and there, and follow us on all those things too. That was just like this episode, man. So we're talking shows. Let's talk about this. This is another show related thing. And it's podcast related. It's not about Smack Talk, but it's about the Edge and Christian pod of awesomeness. Edge is no longer going to be a part of that. And I've not actually listened to a single episode of it. You'd think otherwise. You'd think that it would be like, you run a wrestling podcast thing, you should be super interested in this. And it's like, yeah, but I spend my little time that I can away from the pro wrestling side of things doing other things because it's too much already. So I don't know what the future of that is. I think that Christian is just kind of continuing forward with that for the time being on his own, but that still kind of sucks to lose half of your whole point of the whole thing. Yeah,
especially if in many people's eyes it's the better half. I've always found Christian entertaining enough on his own that if he was to, I don't listen to the podcast myself because, like you say, you sometimes just want to decompress from the whole wrestling side of things, and I tend to listen to more like news orientated and fan based orientated wrestling podcasts as opposed to like actual wrestlers talking about stuff. And so obviously losing Edge out of the mix is going to be, I assume it's going to hurt it because those two have always had great chemistry with each other. That was the idea of starting the podcast in the first place. It would be both of them working on it. So if one of those two decides that they're going to leave, then it weakens the thing by proxy. And
their partnership.
Yeah, exactly. And so if Christian wants to continue it, I'm sure Christian will do fine. If he wants to bring someone else on board to replace Edge, like, I'm assuming that he's got plenty of people that he's worked with over the years that he could get in to fill in. Like Tommy Dreamer will basically do anything. So
CNT's part of awesomeness.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like what like people that they've worked with closely in the past that would do it, like maybe like Rhino, or I assume Kurt Angle probably wouldn't do it, but
I really hope it's not Tomko.
yeah, I can't think of too many. He's worked with plenty of people in the past, so I'm sure if there was an opportunity for someone to come in and take his place, I mean, if they wanted to keep the E&C Pod of Awesomeness, I'm pretty sure EC3 isn't doing anything right now, so get him to be the E instead.
Big E pops up.
The big E&C Pod of Awesomeness.
I'd listen to it because they would be really confused about how they would work together, but I would assume that it would either be switch it over to the Peep Show and it just becomes Christian's show, or something else goes along with that. But then again, I don't follow it, so if anybody has more information, drop a comment below and inform everybody else of the stuff that we're not aware of.
I'd say if he didn't already have a podcast, it would be good to see Christian and Chris Jericho reunite for a podcast.
Yeah, like that would be kind of fun.
They always had good chemistry.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe he brings in like a Trish or something. Or maybe he just has like a revolving group of people. Or maybe he stops doing the podcast. That could be a thing.
Maybe it's Christian and the Blue Dot.
Oh, that could be the thing.
Yeah.
Vince wouldn't like it, but... what do we got here? Naming wise, let's talk of these two name things. These happened really last week on NXT, but since it's hot tags going back that far, it's kind of this is the first chance we got to really talk about it, which is that Lacey Lane is now Kayden Carter. That's a fucking name that you can throw in porn star or superstar, isn't it? And Chase Parker and Matt Martel, otherwise known as 15 other variations of those names, the Team 3.0, they are also now called Team Ever Rise. And they seem to be like a fixture of NXT right now. So we got Kayden Carter, we got Ever Rise, Chase Parker, and Matt Martel. What are your thoughts about these name changes?
0. That's you could not comprehend the minuteness of thought that I'm giving to these name changes. It's just what they do nowadays. They, instead of Lacey Lane, they decided to change something with a slightly different alliteration. I would have agreed with the porn star and superstar if Carter was spelled with a K, then I definitely would have gone with it. But the fact they decided to go with C, it's even more boring, really. And Ever Rise, I don't really know what that means, but it's just a tag team name. So I'm sure they'll get it fit. Like when the Revival first got together, we kind of think, well, how does that name going to work? And eventually, if they're good enough, you'll eventually just forget about the name.
See, the Lacey Lane name, that's another porn star, superstar kind of thing. I thought it's a little bland, but I'm kind of feeling like they wanted her to change the name because they already have Lacey Evans and they don't want two Lacey's. But that would kind of make sense. But Kayden Carter, it's so bland. And that reminds me of like the Michael McGillicuddy type of thing. There's nothing special about it. Oh, they got rid of Taynara Conti's last name too. Now she's just Taynara because you're going to add the first name to Rowan and the first name to Harper again, and you got to sacrifice something to balance that out. So she's just Taynara now. Parker and Martel, Ever Rise. I mean, when I first saw that was on the screen as Ever Rise, my immediate reaction was, shouldn't that be the name of like a bakery product or something? Like, you know, did you get the brown sugar and the Ever Rise and the whatever? Like, make sure you add some baking soda and some Ever Rise to that. Like,
I assume the Ever Rise would just be a like a male enhancement.
It could be that too. That's even worse. Like, did you take your pill this morning? Did you get your Ever Rise? Sponsored by Blue Chew, kind of those things?
Yeah.
Not a fan of that name. Not a fan of the gimmick that they just have like the Fleur de Lis or whatever it is on their tights. That's just sort of Jobber City. Not the biggest fan. What I'm a fan of, though, is my merch shop. What the hell? I'll toss that plug out there. If you want to have some puns off of these names, I'll try to think of some and make some kind of little pot shot type of merchandise and put them up on the TeePublic and the Redbubble for Smark Out Moment. There's also the other merchandise shops. There's the Fanboys Anonymous ones, and there's the a Mango Teas ones, so check that out in the future. If I think it's something with Everrise and I can think of like a Pillsbury thing or like a Viagra type thing, then I'll try to do that the way that I did with the extra Emma fun gum kind of thing. And let's move on to another thing here. Let's talk about Rusev. He is now an American citizen. Neat. Nothing really to talk about. It's just something I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got other things on his mind at the moment.
Yeah. That's one of those quick little hot tags. You're just like, hey, yeah, USA. Cool. Whatever. We
Funny,
have
I was going to say it's funny he's turned babyface now off the back of that.
Yeah, he was a heel last week. He becomes an American citizen and he's babyface.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
And he's gonna be, well, we'll talk about this a little bit, but like he's aligned with Hulk Hogan as well, so that was
maybe that's all working in conjunction. It's like, well, now he's a real American, so let's have him come out to that theme. And if they were to have planned that out, then my hat that I'm not wearing right now is totally off to them. But it's impossible. That's just a coincidence. But that'd be really fucking funny. Let's talk about the idea that we've got Crown Jewel. Let's lump this into to Raw. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's put a pin in that for right now. We've got WWE Day of Becky Lynch at Clash of Champions 2019. Did you get a chance to check this out?
Yeah, I somehow managed to squeeze the 6 minutes into my schedule.
Is that all it was?
Well, that's what I saw on the network version, so I'm assuming that I watched the right thing, because
might be
because it was just Becky Lynch backstage, pretty much just talking to a camera about Sasha Banks.
Yeah, this was entirely a skip. It was a fucking promo and nothing else. There's no substance behind like a video package. I'm gonna beat her. I've proven myself before. A bunch of that chatter. It's a fucking promo.
Yeah, I know Rob has said like in previous podcasts about how he's really into the intensity behind this feud. I don't feel any intensity out of this. I just feel I'm getting the sense of the four horsewomen are just happy that they're working together, so it means they don't have to work with anyone else for a little while. And so they're just trying to make it seem epic, but they're actually in general just relieved. And they can just do what they do because they have great matches with all of these people, and then they have to move on to people who aren't quite up to the level that these four are. And I don't know, I'm not getting. I was hoping with Sasha Banks turning heel that it would be a bit of a return back to the old boss character, and this feels like a pretty damp squib version of the old boss character. It's not.
Yeah.
Charismatic enough.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more later on this week because it's one of the 3 only matches that we know that's happening at Hell in a Cell. So
yeah.
We know more about what's happening after Hell in a Cell right now with the idea that they announced that WWE Chronicle Goldberg is happening right after that than we do for the card, which is just insane. They also had another Table for 3 episode. This one is General Manager Special, clearly filmed with all the other ones around WrestleMania, which means that they are like 6 months past the point that they should have gotten to all these episodes, which I don't know why they're dragging their ass on putting these out there so much. We've had weeks where there wasn't really anything special to do, so, whatever. That was Eric Bischoff, Kurt Angle, and Vicky Guerrero. Not a bad one, I thought.
Yeah, I couldn't get into it. There were too many video packages in this one.
That did go on a while. They maybe they had like not a whole lot of stuff and they needed filler.
It just felt about like somebody saying, "Oh, I remember this happening," and then they cut to a video package for it for about a minute or 2 minutes, and then it would just go back to, "Oh yeah, and I remember when this happened," yeah. And then it just cuts to another video package. It didn't feel like there was any real conversation between these guys.
I did like when Bischoff said, "Nobody wants to be future endeavored," and I'm like, I always like it when people use that phrase.
Yeah, I mean, they would talk about what was it, their like departures or anything along those lines, and what was the phrase they used?
yeah. So Bischoff is like, "Let's talk about our." Man, my voice cracked right there. Let's talk. I'm a teenager like Dominic. he's like, let's talk about our terminations. And Angle waits a couple seconds and he's like, we're talking about when we got fired, right? Which is thought was really funny.
Yeah, I sometimes, I mean, that's funny, but I sometimes worry about like the abuse that Angle's taken over the years and think, okay, it's the same way when I see Shane McMahon like stumble over his words in a promo.
That's a good point, yeah.
You just get that sort of, okay, he's taken a lot of punishment and he's had battles with substance abuse issues that he's talking about in the past. So it's like now he's clean, it's all great, but it's just like there's still remnants remaining, maybe, which I worry about.
Yeah, obviously, if that's the case, then it's no laughing matter. But the way that they showed him, he had his eyes wide open, and it kind of was like some Scooby-Doo, like, me? Kind of thing. Like, it was kind of like, when I got fired?
Yeah.
Like, so I laughed at that. I thought that was funny.
I thought Vicky was the best one out of the episode. Because she's someone who you just don't hear enough from nowadays. From someone who was such a big fixture for a good, like, the better part of a decade on TV. And you just don't hear enough about her stories or what she did in the past, like behind the scenes, or how she was produced and things along those lines.
I'd really like maybe one episode, maybe two, if you can spread it out or so. Sit down interview thing with Conrad Thompson and Vicky Guerrero. Because I think that Conrad's better than a lot of these other podcast folk where I've only listened to a couple episodes or a couple minutes of a couple episodes from some different people. So again, I'm judging based off of little empirical data. But like, I wouldn't feel like if Taz, for instance, were interviewing Vicky Guerrero, that I would get a full in-depth breakdown of her career, or Chris Jericho, because they would get in like side topics, and it would be like, so what type of music do you like? And if Austin were to do it, it would be like, hell kid, tell me about whatever, and this kind of thing and stuff. I feel like Conrad, the way that he brings things to the table, he's like, I did my research, here's all the topics we're going to talk about, spanning the multitude of your career, let's break it down. And if he were to, you couldn't do like a series like Grilling JR with Vicky, but maybe do like a 2-episode type of long format thing. I'd be really interested to hear what she has to say about like working with Dolph Ziggler and Big Show and John Cena and Edge and Chavo and all the other kind of things that go along with that, outside of just the story that we've heard a million times about like, oh, I was with Eddie and I picked up some of this and I didn't know it was going to be that hard, and then I eventually loved it. And like, I heard that before. I want to know more about the stuff of like, who did you not get along with backstage? Tell me the story about how you decided to start doing the excuse me thing, or like, more stuff about like that. I'd be interested.
Yeah, I would definitely want to see a bit more, because especially with the WWE branded product, you're not going to get the full story, or you're going to get the story which is slightly more toned down.
Mm-hmm.
So one with Conrad Thompson, something like maybe even a kayfabe commentaries, if they're still around, with like Sean Oliver, because they really go a lot more hardcore. I just don't know if Vicky's willing to. It never burns a bridge, because tons of people that appeared on those kayfabe commentaries have come back and worked for WWE. But it's more about just if she's willing to give that much information away, because she's probably quite happy to be outside the business and just appear every now and again.
Yeah, I kind of can't picture her doing the whole like the hoe bag thing on kayfabe commentaries like some other people do, or like, I'm going to show you this needle. Who does it remind you of backstage? Doesn't seem like a Vicky Guerrero type of thing.
Nah, she's too nice for that.
Yeah, I'd be interested though. If she wants to do it, I'd fucking watch the episode. That's for sure. Oh, another show. I totally forgot about talking about this one. WWE canceled their Superstar Search reality show that was in the works, and this one was supposed to be essentially finding the next female superstar, and kind of a cross between the Diva Search and Tough Enough to a certain degree. And that's why they didn't call it the Diva Search, because they can't do the Diva thing anymore other than Total Divas, which nobody gives a shit about unless you are the type of person, in which case go ahead and watch it. I'm never going to see it anymore. And I'm kind of happy about it that they canceled this idea. I thought that if they were to do another Tough Enough, and they were to do it in their control on the WWE network, I would probably really enjoy it. Or if they were to do something like Breaking Ground again, then I'd be watching that again because I really liked that. But this idea of a reality series that any other network would have had any other kind of influence over, and it's just let's have our search for the next female superstar, I'm sure it would have been garbage.
Oh, more than likely. I don't think it would have accomplished anything because even though we've seen people from Tough Enough get into WWE and succeed off the back of it, took like Velveteen Dream, The Miz, people on those lines, it wasn't being on Tough Enough that helped them succeed. It was being within WWE and training and working hard yourself once that's happened. You get that initial exposure, but I don't think any of them really benefited from being on Tough Enough.
No, the only thing that they got out of that was a foot in the door.
Yeah, exactly. And nowadays, people will get the opportunity anyway with the Performance Center and the tryout events they do every single year. So if you're good enough, they will be able to pick you out, and then there's less pressure and expectation on you as well. Because as soon as you appear on this one, and especially if you win it, then there's the immediacy issue of like, okay, we need to get this person on the NXT reasonably quickly so they don't lose their buzz. And then if they come through and then they don't succeed as like readily as they were hoping or expecting them to, then they're just immediately like castigated as failure.
And the people that would be a part of this too, it's a reality show. Reality shows are notoriously terrible when it comes to casting things. It's just a bunch of social media influencing and Instagram people searching for their fame, trying to get their Twitter followers up a little bit more. And yeah, a lot of them will be gorgeous, but fucking go to Pornhub if that's what you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like, it's not reality, it's scripted reality.
Mm-hmm.
What's
the phrase that Miz uses? He uses something in particular all the time whenever he's talking about Miz and Mrs. It's
staged.
Nah, it's not staged reality or scripted reality. It's God, I'm blanking on it. It's such an like producery type of bullshit term that I rolled my eyes so hard when I had heard it. Something like enhanced reality or something like that.
Right. So yeah, it would just be along those lines. It wouldn't be. I'm not saying it would be scripted, but it would just be along the lines like they'll create situations or tensions between people and see how they react to it, that type of thing. Which is just, it's not what reality TV should be, because the thing that people don't want to admit about reality TV is that if it was just straight up reality, it would be boring, because life is boring. And we don't just want to watch people, I don't know, reading a book for an hour, because that's not entertaining.
That'd be great though if they ended up having some kind of thing where they were like, all right, like we got like Tough Enough or something like that, we want you guys to be a part of this, and here for this episode you're gonna study tape. And then they just sit there and go, oh, okay, that's how you do a body slam.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this exciting commercial break.
Yeah, it wouldn't work for that. I just think that format is passe nowadays. It's not like, just might throw my own plug in there with like 2001 A Wrestling Odyssey. 2001 was the year that they did the first Tough Enough series, and at that point it was a groundbreaking, different approach to reality TV that hadn't really been taken up at that point in time. Nowadays it's been done multiple times and it doesn't get any better. Like, it's very rare that you have one that really works and gets a lot of good attention. So I mean, I wouldn't risk them doing it again. It's for the best that it was cancelled.
Even just the name of it, just the whole superstar search, it's the most bland, basic thing you could ask for. So they wouldn't have put a whole lot of stuff, and they got plenty of crap on their plate too. That's the thing. Like, focus on these other things. Focus on trying to make Raw better, doing that kind of stuff. We will talk about Raw, but before we get into that, we should talk about John Morrison, because he has totally definitively 100% signed for WWE. Bullshit. No, it didn't happen. That's not in the slightest bit true. That's essentially the week that it's been. It could be one or the other.
Yeah, it's pretty much the way that it always is, really. I don't know I don't feel particularly comfortable commenting or talking too much in detail about it because we don't know if it has happened or if it's going to happen or it won't happen. Somebody just was spreading rumors around. So it just feels like it's a non-story at the moment until something actually happens. I saw so many people talking about the when that limo pulled up at the end of Raw saying, "Oh, Morrison's appearing here and he's about to make an impact immediately." But no, he wasn't on Raw, and he seems like, and there's bits and pieces flying around that he hasn't signed for WWE at all. I mean, WWE should, if they're so keen on getting anyone who could be a potential player in the wrestling business before any other promotion gets him, then they probably should sign him. But I don't know what they do with him.
He has like room to go places. He could go to NXT, he could go to SmackDown, he could go to Raw.
Yeah,
but I don't know if that would be the type of thing that he would want his wife, Ty Valkyrie, to be a part of anything. And if that was the case, she'd probably go to NXT, and maybe he would go down to NXT for that. They wouldn't really push him, that's for sure. He wouldn't suddenly become a world champion.
No, he's 39 now, so he's pushing towards the back end of his career. He probably has another, like, I'd say, especially with his style, 5 to 10 years of like high-end wrestling left in him. And if he's going to spend it in WWE, he's going to spend it floating around the mid-card constantly. He'll probably come back. If he was to come back, it would be in one hot angle where he fights for the Intercontinental or US title, loses, and then he's just straight back into just being a guy on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if he'd be utilised any better if he was, I don't know, Johnny AEW or Johnny Dynamite.
He'd be either Johnny Dynamite or Johnny Elite.
Yeah,
if that was the case.
I mean, with Impact's new deal, he might go back to Impact Wrestling. I mean, there's plenty of options now available. Got NWA, so he could be Johnny Power.
What if he went to AEW and instead of being Johnny Dynamite or Johnny Elite, he picked the wrong word and he went with Johnny All? Yeah, he could pop around. He could do a lot of things like that. And it seems, at least according to Morrison and Valkyrie's Twitter accounts and stuff, that shouldn't be the direction that we were thinking, is that he would go to WWE. But then other people are like, nope, he signed. So it's the type of thing that, who do you trust? Do you trust the people that report on things, and then it's the whole like, well, plans changed and we didn't really have a good source to begin with? Or do you trust the people that go, that's definitely not going to happen, and then he pops up on the draft and it's like, well, of course I was going to say it wasn't going to happen because I didn't want you to know the spoiler that I was going to pop up, and that kind of thing. It's, at the very least, it's one or the other. He's going or he's not. And we know that that's a guarantee.
Yeah, that's the kind of news that you come to Smock Out Moment to find out. That sort of
If
insight.
you want to know if the rumor is true about the thing, whatever, well, we say, I don't know. If you were to place him somewhere, where would you want him to go?
I don't know. I don't really have too much of a connection to him. Like Ty's currently tied up with Impact Wrestling, so you'd say just for not so much safety or security of their marriage, I'm sure it's very strong, but it's like, it's good to spend more time with your partner, so if you wanted to go back there. But if that's not what he's interested in, WWE's probably going to offer him the best money. So I'd say if you don't think that AEW or any other promotion is going to utilise you in a more main event or prominent role, then just go where the best money's offered, wherever that may be.
If I'm Morrison and I'm thinking to myself, I've tried to be an actor and I can only get these like B-movie role things, but maybe that's even fun. Maybe that's what he wants to do. If he wants to stay there, he can't go to WWE because WWE is not going to let him do whatever the bounty hunter thing was. Boone, I think, or whatever. They're going to be like, no, you need to do WWE studio films, or you need to do bigger things that we can actually like promote. But if he wants to try to get into more bigger films and stuff, WWE is the platform that can actually give him that notoriety. And maybe that would even be worth it. And it all depends on how much he wants to wrestle, too. Maybe he doesn't want to do the WWE traveling. If that's the case, NXT is a good spot for that. You don't really need to travel. You just live in Florida and you just do that Tuesday night for rehearsal and Wednesday night for the show. And, once a month or whatever it is for other kind of things. So, I don't know. I mean, that's something to keep our eyes out on. Maybe Morrison pops up in the draft. Maybe he doesn't at all. And maybe this is just a whole bunch of nothing. But
I would say, at least as a general rule, don't sign with Ring of Honor. That seems to be the thing nowadays.
Well, unless you're, what is it, Matt Taven?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he was never going to get anywhere else anyway.
Never even heard of the name beforehand.
Well, he's been their world champion for the last 9 months, so it's like...
Goes to show my indie wrestling cred.
So it's like... I think I read somewhere that somebody had like a good Twitter analogy. I can't remember the Indie thing, but they said something along the lines of Ring of Honor is the new Impact Wrestling, Impact Wrestling is the new MLW, MLW is the new Ring of Honor, NXT is the new like New Japan, that type of thing. Just like all flying around the place. It's like people now talk about Ring of Honor in the same way that people used to talk about TNA, which is kind of depressing.
And then you got like main event sitting there going, "Hello." It's like it's kind of,
and it's like, oh, you're still here.
What am I? And you're like, you're been dead for how many years now? That's what you are. Didn't you go away with superstars? Get the fuck out of here. So before we get into Monday Night Raw, I'm gonna throw out two more plugs just to get them out of the way for anybody. One of them is the Patreon. Now, we've talked about this in the past. Every little bit of a donation counts. Everything helps keep my sanity and everything going in the future and to keep this channel up and all that, whether it's $1 or $5 or you want to be a part of the tier that donates $10,000 or whatever it is. That'd be awesome. Not expecting it, but one of the things to be aware of is if we get enough people to donate to, I think it's like the $20 tier or whatever it is. I'm actually blanking off the top of my head. If you go to the page, you'll see it on there. If we get enough people, then we'll start doing dark matches, and we'll do them on Patreon only, kind of specific things. And that might be a little bit on the more risque side of things. Maybe it'll be topics that we don't normally talk about. Maybe we'll get into stuff more along the lines like the All Talk Show. All that kind of stuff is kind of looped in there. So keep the Patreon in mind. Or if you want some very specific thing, like you just desperately want us to do a fan ounce table of a particular match or something, and we're just never seeming to get around it, then donate to the Pick Your Poison deal, because that is the one where you can do that. So Patreon is there for that, and it's also for fanboysanonymous.com, which is my geek culture website where you will find the movie reviews and the different kinds of talk-related topics of TV and comic books and superheroes and video games and all that other kind of stuff. Like later on this week, I'm planning, hopefully, somehow, to find the time to see Joker, so I'll have some kind of a review up for that. So stay tuned for that as well. And if you want to see more things on the Fanboys Anonymous side, head up to Patreon for that, so on and so forth. So our big topic here, as if these other topics weren't already big enough, we didn't already talk for a fucking hour, is the quote-unquote premiere of Monday Night Raw, which it's like one of the things that I find funny. Last week was apparently the season finale. Only in wrestling, right?
Yeah. Go from one thing which was like a continuous series, ends last week and starts a new one on the exact same network.
Exact same time, exact same week, practically. If you got like the crossover appeal with that, you got like the graphic for the new episodes started last week. So that's just like, let's just do that while we're at it. But we do have a couple things just on like the production side that we know of, which is now we have a new intro. We have an intro, I should say. A new WWE intro, like the signature itself is different. That's all like the first impression type of things. I don't like the WWE signature as much. I feel like that song is just kind of strange. What do you feel about it?
I started Raw late, so I've missed it.
Okay. So it's the exact same intro, but they just changed the song. I think it's the exact same. They might have tweaked some little things here and there. I don't know. But the other one had a little bit more of a ring to it. This one just sort of feels like a stock song, so I don't know. We don't even know who's doing the music because CFO Money doesn't do this anymore. So what's that all about? But the new intro for Raw, not a big fan of that either. The song itself, I actually don't know what it is. I got to listen to that a couple more times before I even recognize what it is. But the visuals, they kept showing a band. And like,
it's like NXT's one does that, doesn't it? Or it does like a very similar thing where it's like it's all the guys in the ring, but they're singing the theme music.
I hate that NXT one. I'm not a fan of that at all. I don't like that type of music. That's why. And I don't get the whole, like, we are not your kind. We are NXT. Like, whatever. I think it's just annoying. But this, like, they actually actively show, like, some other random singers and stuff and, like, their instruments. And I'm like, what the fuck is this for? Like, why are we showing this on Monday Night Raw? For that matter, why does Shinsuke Nakamura still have that intro?
I guess, well, they don't want to change it. They like it.
You can make the argument that it's like, well, it's different, so Nakamura sings different. Okay, well, different doesn't necessarily mean good. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't... Go ahead.
So I'm just looking at, like, bits of the intro now. Why is Undertaker in the intro?
Yeah. Hey, kids, remember Undertaker? That's why.
It just seems odd that he was one of, like, the people featured on it. It just... Yeah. I think the band playing, I think, is Stricken. As far as I could tell from like the bits and pieces from it, who are just a pretty like standard metal band. It's nothing too out of the ordinary, really. It kind of fits into the WWE mold of that type of music, especially what they used to do in the mid 2000s, early to mid 2000s. So it doesn't surprise me that they go back to that well for the new intro. I'm not too annoyed about the fact that it shows bits of the band, because I think they deserve to be promoted if they're going to agree to do the theme music.
I don't even know if that's the band that did the music.
I'm pretty sure it is.
It'd be funny as hell if it wasn't.
I'd be incredibly surprised if it wasn't there. If they're going to show anybody in doing it, it probably is there.
That to me is just weird, though. Like, that I don't get the idea of the band, because it's wrestling. It's like, show me the wrestling stuff. Don't be like, hey everybody, this is Monday Night Raw, we're a pro wrestling thing, we got bands, we're fucking cool, rock music, we're in touch with the hip kids today, like that kind of thing.
Well, they used to do it
strange.
They used to do it for the Across the Nation one as well, because they used to have, like, it wasn't just the wrestlers being shown, it was like, I think it was elements of that music video that they weaved into the intro, like at the very start of it, before they started just showing a load of high impact people doing moves. But there's also, like, the interesting thing about it is, like, nobody's actually wrestling in this intro.
I didn't catch that.
I mean,
are they all just like posing and stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it's just a load of entrances and people standing around.
That's really.
I mean, there's a few like little clips of like Balor flying through the air and stuff like that before he hits the coup de grace, but you don't actually see him land it. So it's just odd that you have a wrestling intro which has no wrestling on it.
Typical WWE. We're not wrestling. We're sports entertainment. We've got everything. A combination of soap operas and music videos and the things you'd see on that MTV and that kind of thing. What do you think about the pyro? I thought having pyro back was fun, I have to admit.
I'm not going to turn my nose up at any pyro. As soon as that's back, it just lightens the product a little bit. It makes it seem a bit more impactful.
I will admit I was too busy to keep track of and actually pay attention to a lot of the pyro. The only two that I wrote down were that Alexa Bliss's pyro, because that was the first one that happened that kind of took me by surprise. Brock Lesnar obviously has his pyro back, and that Becky Lynch just has smoke or steam technically.
Yeah, well,
smoke is being saved for the Street Profits.
Yeah, it's the old steampunk thing. She's always had that. Well, when they used to still have that sort of thing, that was her entrance. So she still carries that side of things. I think it's interesting that AJ Styles has a noise in his theme music which sounds like pyro going off, but he doesn't actually have any pyro going off.
Did you see what Ricochet's was? Because I didn't, I wasn't watching at that time. I didn't see if he got any.
No, I didn't catch it clearly enough. But if he's got some, then that's something.
And this could change next week, and this could change 2 weeks from now too, because the whole setup with the draft and all that, who knows what they're planning on doing with all that things. We got all the new graphics are now all fully in there. We got the pointed down arrow type of version of the Raw logo, which I'm kind of indifferent to. I still don't think that font that they use for the Raw thing is all that great. It's too bulky and too round. What do you think about that? All the graphics and stuff.
Again, very low opinion. Not so much like low opinion, but like not saying that I hate it or anything along those lines, but pretty indifferent to it. It's just there. No strong feelings either way, really.
I liked the ones that we had before, so the fact that they changed this up and they didn't change it too drastically, it's still sort of minimal. Like, all right, it's not obnoxious. I'm okay with that.
I appreciate that it looks different, even if it is only slightly different. Just it needed a change. It was far too long in the previous format.
It was God, when did they change that? 2016?
Yeah, I assume it was with the move back to like when SmackDown moved on to USA after they did the draft. Maybe even further than that, really, because it's always felt pretty much the same with that giant LED board and then the ramp down to the ring. It's always looked pretty much the same for God knows how long. And at least this one, at least the backing behind it looks noticeably different enough to make it stand out.
It is like strange though when you're looking at just the set by itself, and when people were posting pictures when main event was like going on and stuff, and it's just like this big curve. It reminds me of like the warped wall from Ninja Warrior.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like a stage to me. It seems more like, I don't know, somebody took an LED screen. Technically, I guess kind of did, and they just sort of like laid that out and said like, stand on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm pretty sure I saw someone tweet at Casey Catanzaro that she should try and climb it on the next one. I think she seemed down for it, so that's good.
I really hope that she sticks around and she isn't quitting wrestling.
No, obviously.
Yeah. So let's talk about what happened on Raw. They started it off with, and they had announced ahead of time, Rey Mysterio is going to fight Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship. So Rey Mysterio comes out and he's like, hey, I need to cut a promo because I'm not wrestling tonight and I'm going to get my ass beat by Brock Lesnar, who pops up, beats the shit out of him, beats the shit out of Dominic. You know, the mercy of somebody who can beat up a teenager like that. Everybody in the Mega Maniacs chat all kind of had this same idea where we're like, all right, cool. We're starting off with a bang. This is might not be necessarily exactly what you wanted. Maybe you wanted the Rey Mysterio match and you're disappointed, but at least it's cool. It's interesting. Let's see where they go. How were your thoughts at that first part?
Well, fundamentally, it shows that WWE hasn't changed too much, where they essentially spent the whole week advertising the main event match and then immediately get rid of it in the first opening segment. So the one of the main drawing factors bringing you into this show is immediately pushed away. So if anyone was really looking forward to that match, then they probably would end up disappointed. But at least they did it in a way which was really exciting and emphatic. I mean, I know what your feelings about Brock Lesnar are, and I think that they're totally valid. But I adore this man. Everything that he does is so much better than what anybody else on the roster does.
Oh, this was great. This is the Brock that I like. Like, if we could get this type of, well, to a certain extent, if we saw this happen 3 times a week, every single week, I'd be bored of it. But like, he is huge and he's got so much credibility. He should beat the shit out of people on a regular basis. And then when he loses to people, it should matter and he should actually lose. And you know, they should have matches and it should be more than 5 minutes and it should be more than 2 moves and that kind of thing. That's where you start breaking it down.
Well, most of his matches should be the 2-minute matches, and then the ones where he's either going to lose or the ones where he's going to be facing someone who's like very credible, he needs to go a bit longer, obviously.
Yeah. And him against a Mysterio, like Mysterio should stand no chance.
Yeah. And I thought Dominic sold the hell out of everything that he was doing. For a guy who's only got a couple of years like training under his belt, he flew for that German suplex.
He got tossed around like a fucking rag doll. That was good.
Like, part of me thought that Brock was not so much going into business because I think Dominic fucked up the F5 that was meant to happen on the floor.
Yeah, that was slappy.
So I think he improvised it into the steel post and then slammed him onto the ground. I've always had the opinion that even though there's this reputation that Brock is a mercenary, which he kind of is, but if people are willing to pay you that sort of money, you're going to take it. But I don't think he's ever been unprofessional, or at least not hugely unprofessional. I don't think he would have fucked that up and thought, okay, I'm going to absolutely rip this guy to shreds now. I think he probably just improvised, did the thing as safely as he possibly could, and then threw the guy around like a rag doll. But that was what he was there to do.
Yeah, and that was great. And even though it did throw away the Universal title match, which is kind of like, God damn it, WWE, you can't go 1 week without changing the things you advertise in advance. It was at least in a way that it was like, but I'm interested in how this goes. Instead of just being like, we announced a match and it's just not happening because we decided that we wanted to change it. Yeah.
Here's my, again, trying to bring logic into it, whereas maybe I should start abandoning this nowadays. But essentially what Lesnar did was beat up a guy for no reason who was in a match. But again, it's a wrestler and it's WWE. That's the sort of risk that you take by just getting in a ring. But then he attacked a fan on the outside, brought him into the ring, and he's like beat the shit out of him, as well as his father, who is a wrestler. And he's still going to have his WWE Championship match on Fox, even though he essentially committed an assault of a fan.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the personnel.
Yeah.
The dude.
So just, again, maybe it's just the idea of there's a Brock Lesnar rule in WWE where Brock Lesnar can do this stuff that other people can't. But you need to clarify that then. That somebody behind the scenes is working in Lesnar's favour to make sure, and I guess maybe it's Heyman at this point, but you have to like demonstrate that point, because the only people that know that Heyman is in charge of Raw are the fans like us that actually know what's going on behind the scenes. And we're not the ones that you need to tell this stuff to.
It's a different type of Brock Lesnar role.
Yeah.
Than the one on SmackDown.
Yeah, because it was like you say, it was a very cool segment to kick off the show. It was very well done. It got people's attention. It really like grabs you straight away. But then when you sit back and you think about the logic behind it, it just doesn't make sense. But in terms of wrestling, you try and throw logic out the window most of the time anyway, because otherwise you're just going to always run into a brick wall.
And that is like, all right, certain suspension of disbelief is just whatever. But let's see where it goes. And WWE's like, oh, we're at this premiere. We just did this thing. It's going to be crazy. We got Becky Lynch coming out. She's popular as all hell. And we're going to go into Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss. And like 2 minutes later, the match is over. And they did that whole Lawler crap with the, you're standing on the thing and you said you wouldn't do this. And remember, you said that you wouldn't do this and whatever. And then they cut a generic pass promo of Sasha and Becky just going, Hell in a Cell is a thing that we kind of remember a little bit, at least for 3 matches. A do nothing match. And this was like, already I could tell everybody in the chat was just like, damn it.
Yeah, there was obviously for this segment and for a lot of segments, there's too much talking on this show.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was desperately trying to search for the that clip of the Undertaker grabbing Shawn Michaels by the throat with the phrase like "everyone talks too much" that you get from the Botchamania stuff, because it was too many people saying stuff. And I'm not saying like the action, you need to have 2 or 3 more matches, but you could have had more matches, or you could have extended time on matches. And maybe that would have made it worse, maybe that would have made it better, I don't really know, but it just felt like too many people were just saying pretty empty stuff for the most part. And
I guess, like, WWE always wants to do lots of talking, and it's really frustrating. And sometimes if they do just a whole bunch of wrestling, it can be kind of boring too. It depends on how everything goes. The talking segments can be amazing. The talking segments can be crap. But I really want to harp on this, and I'm going to harp on it a little bit later on this week when we're talking Hell in a Cell predictions. We have 3 fucking matches announced.
Mm.
Like, Raw was obviously one of the priorities for this week. They wanted to make sure that USA felt like they were getting a big show because they're going to be spending so much time on NXT and so much time on SmackDown. SmackDown is the number one priority for this week. If there's a pecking order, SmackDown's number one. Raw was most likely number two, if not NXT. Whichever one of those two is number three. And then everything else starts falling down, and Hell in a Cell's number four. And then, of course, you feel really shitty if you're 205 Live and you're NXT UK and so on and so forth. But you've got 3 matches, and it's the go-home show of Monday Night Raw. And your next show that you're going to have to present some kind of an idea of what matches are going to be on this card is going to be the night leading into the day before that event. That's not enough time to really build anything for this, because what they're going to do is they're going to just announce on WWE.com, oh, by the way, Cedric Alexander is going to get another shot at the United States title. Are you interested in that? Then the people will be like, no. And they're going to just rush their time with those kind of things, and it's not going to work out well. And by the time we get to Hell in a Cell, there's going to be all those news reports about, tickets are still available for Hell in a Cell because they're not selling all that well. And it's like, yeah, I know, because they're not focused on it. And even with an episode of Raw like this tonight, you just had a talking segment and a beatdown segment, and that was the first 18-20 minutes of the episode. You're going to go into Banks and Bliss at a quick match, which again, everybody criticizes, like that whole, why are they going back to the 3-minute match type thing, which will be predominantly just Becky Lynch saying, hey, we're going to fight at Hell in a Cell. And then later on, you're still going to have Sasha Banks do a whole, yeah, I'm going to cut a promo real quick about that. Like, these people that watch this show are not brain dead zombies. We know that match is happening, and you're beating it into the ground because it's the only thing. If you would have take out that second promo from Sasha Banks, maybe it was 45 seconds long or something. You could use that time to announce a match on the card. One match on the entire card. One more. Could have just been like, hey, by the way, we're going to have the Raw Tag Team titles on the line. Anything.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty... Even with the amount of stuff they've got going on this week, and I imagine that it's pretty hectic there at this point in time, but you need to have a bit more reason to watch this pay-per-view as opposed to the 3 matches. Like, The Fiend can't carry it all on his own, or Becky can't, or the idea of Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns teaming up. It's like, you need to add some sort of just a few other bits and pieces onto there. You've got this huge roster, and currently your next pay-per-view event has got 8 people on it.
And I mean, it's so transparent that it's obviously just a 3-match card. That's the only matches that they really care about, and they're going to fill in the blanks, and we're just going to be like, oh, isn't that fucking good enough? And you just deal with it and whatever. But it kind of makes you wonder why they even bothered to have this event if they knew that they were going to have this kind of a week, because they don't have the time for it. And if they could have waited until next week, it would have been better.
I kind of think that you were probably wrong about putting Hell in a Cell 4th on the priority list, because it's 5th behind the Saudi Arabia show.
Well, for this week, I mean.
Oh yeah, for this week at the very least. But I still think that the Saudi, at least the Saudi Arabia show, they decided, we're going to promote one match on this one rather than promote for the show that we've got coming up next week.
I bet you, and I wish that there was a way that we could know this information, because obviously we don't know, and we're not going to have any kind of answers for this bet. But I bet you, right now, they have maybe 2 more matches in mind for Hell in a Cell. And they've got maybe they've locked in the 2 teams for the Crown Jewel thing. We'll talk about that. And maybe 2 other matches on Crown Jewel. But that they're mostly going, we'll figure it out. And they're just hoping that that's going to all work itself out. And then their idea will be, well, between those 2 shows, and the draft, we'll get around to Survivor Series, and let's kind of approach it as, we need to make sure we've got a game plan by November 10th. That kind of a thing. I bet you that's how their philosophy is. which is not the way that you run things. And then we go from the Banks thing and all that to Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler coming out. We're not going to have that Universal title match that we promised, but we are going to have that Raw Tag Team title match after the next 6 breaks.
Oh,
We went to commercial. We went to a video package. We went to Charlie Caruso backstage. You got to talk about the Seth Rollins one because I know that fired you up.
well, first of all, I always say about the commercial stuff. As a guy who doesn't watch Raw live because of work and stuff along those lines, and I probably wouldn't even if I had the option to, and he did this one because it was supposedly a special event. I don't know how people watch with all those commercial breaks live. It's incessant. It's obnoxious how many adverts. I mean, you're not watching Raw. You're watching adverts, and there's a wrestling show going around. It's
especially when all the things that WWE does that are promotional material. Like if you're watching, it's like, well, Monday Night Raw just came back from a commercial break. Here's a video package for Hell in a Cell. That's a fucking commercial.
And I just, with the Seth Rollins promo, like, when did Seth Rollins, like, consume John Cena's soul and start spewing that out into his rhetoric? It's like saying, oh, we're going to be doing things here tonight. Oh, you guys ready to see some action? Oh, I'm going to, even though we can't have the match with Rey Mysterio that I really wanted, and we're with you, Rey, you and Dominic fight through this. Miz did the same thing as well. It's like just what you'd expect, really, I guess, from his babyface persona. But I'm going to challenge anyone to an open challenge. Whoever's man enough to face me in the ring, Jack. That's like that pseudo Hulk Hogan, John Cena thing that has been so successful for getting babyfaces over and like popular with the crowd
for the past 17 years.
Yeah, it's been. Yeah, I don't know what they hope to achieve by giving him this such bland superhero type characteristics.
Yeah, it's not working, and that promo was awful, and it didn't explain why he didn't just go out there and fucking help Rey Mysterio. Like, there's not a single babyface that could have helped back then. Come on. Put a little logic in there. Say something about, like, they were barred from ringside, or that they were. I made a joke in the chat I think it was to Guest 5. It was like, couldn't even said that he was stuck in traffic and he didn't get there until after Brock Lesnar beat the shit out of him. Like,
we just talk about, like, I know we'll talk about this a bit later, but with the Ricochet and Cesaro segment, Ricochet's talking about how Rey Mysterio is his idol and stuff like that. Oh, so you just let your idol get the shit kicked out of him and his son? You weren't brave enough to go out there, like the real life superhero couldn't go out there and help his mentor out or whatever. Just like that's why people don't get behind babyface, because babyfaces don't look out for each other, or only the heels look out for each other.
Babyfaces do the thing where if they're in a match and it's a tag team match and they lost, they'll stand vaguely next to the other person who's laying down and maybe go down on one knee and put a hand lightly on their back and be all like, are you okay? And then, I'm going to stare at the people that are on the ramp right now. Boo, you beat us in our match. It's so formulaic and I hate it to no end.
I mean, there's only one instance of a babyface coming out to save a babyface from a beatdown, and then, like, minutes later, that babyface challenges the other babyface for a title match.
Oddly enough, the people that have been doing this the most effectively have been Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. And it's like, Charlotte is even tweeting out, I'm not a fucking babyface and whatever, which is like, you are. Come on, you are. Yeah. And they're supposed to be people that hate each other.
Yeah, but
they're the ones that are doing that better.
Yeah, she's the default babyface at the moment.
And Roman Reigns comes out to help Daniel Bryan.
So who's a heel. Who's kind of just transitioning into a babyface role.
Yeah, who he hated his guts, not that long ago and stuff. Yeah. But at least that's like a little bit of nuance and stuff. Here, it's just flat out, no way Jose couldn't come out and help. Ricochet couldn't come out and help. Zack Ryder couldn't. Kurt Hawkins couldn't.
No, you had
the Viking Raiders couldn't. Ricochet couldn't, like you said.
No, Finlay had to come out and save them instead.
Yeah, Finlay and that other dude.
Yeah.
It's just no logic behind it. And then it's like, you're going through all this and it's us, but we're going to have a different Universal title match. And then it's 6 minutes later or whatever, it's, oh yeah, by the way, Dolph and Rude are still in the ring because they didn't fucking have their match yet. The tag title match goes down. I have nothing to say about it. Do you?
Nah, it's a pretty basic match. I enjoy Otis.
Yeah, Otis is fun. I like it.
Yeah, but it was just a pretty standard. I thought it was pretty comprehensive. The victory by Rude and Ziggler, so it kind of feels like Heavy Machinery are pretty far down the pecking order now.
And then when SmackDown has no tag teams and stuff, they're going to be the number one ranked.
Oh
tag
yeah,
team
obviously,
because, you know. Then we go over to Miz TV, and he introduces the panelists that he had for that episode were Hulk Hogan, accompanied by Jimmy Hart, and Ric Flair. Ric Flair. Every time Ric Flair comes out, it's fucking fun because that dude is so off the wall. Like, he does not follow a script. He does not remember where he's supposed to go. He'll just start rambling. And
you should give him his official title of 17-time world champion Ric Flair.
He won a fucking title out of nowhere. Like,
yeah, no.
Where the hell did this happen?
Well, I've spoken about in the past the fact that you could technically have Ric Flair up to about a 20 or 20-something time world champion if you if you count all of the ones that were vacated for storyline reasons and things along those lines, or things that didn't count. You know, like how Inoki is technically a WWF champion, but they didn't count it because it didn't fit with.
Yeah, they don't recognize that.
Yeah, so Flair has at least half a dozen of those reigns which aren't recognized.
And he starts it off basically with him just being like, oh, you got a nice suit, Miz, and whatever. And Miz is just kind of like, oh, that's cool. I'm hanging out with Ric Flair and whatever. Hulk Hogan comes out. Surprisingly, not a whole lot of booze.
No, but I think people were just enjoying the atmosphere. The crowd was actually really good tonight.
They were treating things better than I think that they should have in some ways, yeah. And they just start going off the walls, and it's, you got like, I think it was funny when Miz is like, how often do you get to see three legends in the ring? I'm talking about myself to Jimmy Hart.
Miz is very good at handling these situations where he keeps it together when it could so easily fall apart.
Mm-hmm. Oh god, if he wasn't there, this would have been a train wreck.
Yeah.
I liked Flair saying, I'm getting sick and tired of hearing Hulk Smoke's music for 30 years. And for that matter, Hulk doing the woo back to him and whatever, I thought that was funny. And they start teasing this idea that they're going to have a match, and that just becomes this like, all right, let's watch these two old coots kind of be insane. Where were you thinking that this was going? Because I figured, okay, well before this, I'm like, this is going to be a segment setting up Crown Jewel.
Oh yeah, I was going to see setting up Crown Jewel. I wasn't still entirely convinced that they weren't actually going to have a match at Crown Jewel.
That's what I was thinking, because they had announced they were going to be doing something at Crown Jewel. And we know Crown Jewel is going to be on Halloween, which is like, that'll be real fucking fun. So just for everybody's like well in advance, me recording a podcast where I've got a dog barking and a bunch of people trying to be trick-or-treating, yeah, that's going to happen. So stay tuned for that. I was sitting there thinking, oh, okay, they're going to announce that they're going to do some kind of a signing, or they're going to do some kind of a being in the corner of somebody, or maybe there's going to be some kind of like gimmicky, like Bray Wyatt attacked both of them kind of thing, and that's how they get out of that segment. I was like, I'm not really sure where they're going here. And when they started teasing that, I was like, oh fuck, they're actually going to wrestle. This could be amazing. There's no way it would be good, but it could be amazing. Well, no, you know what I mean?
Well, no, I didn't want to watch it because I thought, well, Flair's going to die, and because Flair's nearly died on the last couple of years, and so I don't want him to go in any sort of risk of losing, because he's going to do the job as well. So it's even worse if you go out literally and figuratively on your back.
I kind of can't imagine that they can actually do anything. Like, Hogan can't do a leg drop, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming. Like, I think the most we're going to see now that they actually announce what was going to happen at Crown Jewel is that Hogan's going to punch Flair on the outside.
Oh, that's totally going to happen. And Flair's probably going to bleed like
Yeah.
so big because he's Flair. But they eventually get to that point, and it ends up being we're going to have Team Hogan versus Team Flair, and somehow they act surprised about it, yet at the same time, they already picked their team captains. So, again, the pure illogical situation of this whole thing, where I'm sure if he brought it up backstage, it'd be like, God damn it, nobody fucking cares. That's how they got to the point, you know?
I think Miz said when he was announcing it, he said, like, you guys already know about this, but we're going to do this 5-on-5 match. So even though they look surprised, Miz had said in his promo that they already knew that match was taking place.
And then I go, it makes sense, and that could be kind of fun or whatever. Then I went, fuck, it's right around Survivor Series. They do this all the time. It's like they forget about 5-on-5 matches until October, and then they go, let's just do that a couple of times. We're going to have, over the course of this, it used to be that bragging rights was the pay-per-view right beforehand, which was like a team against a team. That's the big selling point. What the hell? Why would you do that twice in a row? And now we're going to have October 31st, a 5-on-5 team thing. Did they say if it's elimination or if it's just a 10-man tag?
I don't remember hearing elimination, but I'd assume that would make more sense. But as far as I can tell at the moment, it's just 5-on-5.
Yeah, I think that it's elimination based, so that way they can drag it out longer throughout the night. And that's happening on October 31st. And then right after that, I mean, as quickly as you can pretty much turn around and start catching your breath and building up to another pay-per-view, we've got TakeOver War Games and Survivor Series. And those are happening on November 23rd and November 24th. And that's going to be the big draw of TakeOver War Games is a bunch of people in a tag team match. And the Survivor Series thing is a bunch of tag team elimination matches. And it's like, over the course of 3-4 weeks, we're going to have just, here's a bunch of 5-on-5s. We're going to be so burnt out about that by the time we get to Survivor Series that we're not going to care about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's a shame. Like, if we could not have Hell in a Cell and next week were Crown Jewel, and you could put Hell in a Cell matches on there and, like, I don't know, a 3-on-3 Team Flair type thing and Team Hogan thing, then I think you could get away with it a little bit. But you don't need these two events. And it's just, that bugs me so much.
Yeah, I don't think it's a case of they forget. I just don't think they care.
No, they don't. I'm sure if somebody were to bring it up and be like, it's a little too close to Survivor Series, they would be like, God damn it, I just told you to shut the fuck up about the whole illogical thing. That's why I would get fired with that. We know at the very least 2 people on each team because Randy Orton comes out. Or, well, first off, it's the captain of the team, Hogan, is Seth Rollins. So for the 5th time in that episode already, Seth Rollins is coming out. And the team captain of Team Flair, which Flair doesn't even get a chance to announce because he just jumped the gun. They're just kind of like, just fucking play the music. Is Randy Orton. Makes sense, at the very least.
Yeah, those two are... Well, if Rollins is turning into pseudo Hogan and Cena, then I guess it's fair that he goes onto Hogan's team. And then Orton being on Flair's one, Evolution ties makes the most sense. It does make me feel like Rollins won't be Universal Champion going into that match.
Yep, I got that feeling as well. I was just like, okay, this confirms it. This confirms a bunch of draft moves. This confirms... Again, we'll talk about it a little bit more detail at Hell in a Cell, but now I'm like, all right, he drops the title to Bray Wyatt, Becky Lynch drops the title to Sasha Banks, they both go over to SmackDown, they end up trading Roman Reigns over to Monday Night Raw, then they end up trading this, they end up trading that, so if Becky Lynch goes over, then Charlotte Flair goes over to Monday Night Raw, which means that Andrade goes over, which means that Zelina goes over, which means that Aleister Black goes over, which means that Rey Mysterio goes over to SmackDown, which means, hey, you know what? Crown Jewel might have Rey Mysterio versus Brock Lesnar for the universe, or for the WWE Championship.
Yeah,
that's how I got around.
That all makes some sort of logical sense, I'm sure. So don't count on it happening.
Yeah, no. It'll be fucking Brock Lesnar against Seth Rollins again or something stupid. Just a double match type of thing. So we get that. We get Baron Corbin comes out and he starts beating down with Randy Orton, beating down Seth Rollins, and Rusev comes and saves the day. So okay, Rusev's a babyface, kinda. And later on, he goes, I saved him because fuck you, I want that Universal title match.
Yeah, he only saved Seth Rollins because he wanted him to owe him so he could get a Universal title match. Because babyfaces have no honor or loyalty to each other. They just want to be the best.
And it's like, you can save Seth Rollins here for that, but nobody can save Ray.
Mm.
You know. Again, the logic behind it all.
Well, Ray was getting beaten up by Brock Lesnar, and he was only getting beaten up by Randy Orton and a guy in a cape.
Apparently later on, I didn't know about this, but Baron Corbin was sitting down in the main event on his throne, and it broke. There's pictures of it. Hashtag Randy Orton source on Twitter, Baltos #1 fan, of the chair breaks, and you can see Randy Orton is laughing hysterically.
Well, yeah, I can't blame him for doing that if that's the case.
Yeah. That's just like the type of thing that I wish that would have been on the air for them to be like showing that, and it just kind of falls just because that would be just like one of the best things that they could have done. So that's the 2-on-2. We still have 3 more people. Obviously, they're going to drag this out a little bit more, and they're going to, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to develop who the other people of these teams are. But it seems like the draft has absolutely no effect on this.
No, it won't.
Which I'm assuming that also means the draft has no effect at all on Crown Jewel and on the Super Showdown or anything going forward. It's just like, well, it's a paid show. We're going to give them anything that they want. That kind of thing. Even though we don't know how this is going to work out, the draft and Hell in a Cell is still all up in the air. You got a feeling of anybody who you think might be on those different teams?
Bobby Lashley will be on Team Flair.
Yeah, it seems like that seems to be pretty much a guarantee at this point. That means 100% Team Flair is the heel team.
Anybody else? Like, I feel like they would both have an established tag team on them. So maybe the Revival would go as like fill in the remainder of the Flair team. I don't think it would be interesting if it was the New Day that was the rest of Hogan's team, considering with the Hogan stuff. But
I could see Cesaro maybe being on Team Flair.
Yeah, that could work. I could see Ricochet being on Hogan's team.
Yeah, if that ends up being Cesaro on the one side, Ricochet on the other.
Yeah, I could see Cedric Alexander maybe being one of the people as well.
They got Alexander, they got Ali, Apollo Crews, Chad Gable. I think could be a really good pick for Team Hogan.
Yeah, and then you could put Elias onto Team Flair.
Yeah, that could be the case.
I think we just need to see what other storylines are developing to see which side could go on which.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because without the draft and without the Hell in a Cell card and without what's happening on SmackDown, we have no real indication of what that's going to be. But we'll figure that out over the next couple of weeks, and obviously we'll talk about that when we get to Crown Jewel. That was that segment. That was the thing. It just reminded me that I think it was during the Sasha match. It might have been something else, but we had that ambulance.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah, just to let you know that Dominic was being carried away, I assume.
We had another AOP vignette where they basically said "Lufta, Lufta, Lufta" a bunch of times because that's whatever language that is for violence. And I just, my ignorant American ass was like, that's funny. It reminded me of Fentruck from Doug with the zwooba, zwooba, or whatever it was. What else we got going on here? We got the Viking Raiders beat the OC for like the 10th time in a row because that's a feud that just ends up being, remember when the Viking Raiders beat them? Let's do that again.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be leading anywhere. You assume the Viking Raiders will eventually get a tag title match.
Yeah, after the draft.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And we get the Ricochet Cesaro thing. Cesaro wearing a fucking pair of pajamas or something.
Yeah, that was some of the weirdest attire that I've ever seen. Because it wasn't long enough to be full tights, but it was too short to be like cargo pants or anything along those lines. So you could just see enough of his shin to, I don't know, Just
It was like capris, kind of.
Yeah, it was. I don't know what he was thinking wearing it.
I don't know either, because it looked so strange, and it comes down to like that kind of small point that pajamas do.
It seems
pajama pants.
It seems like the sort of thing that he had to put on because he's got his own tights and trunks, and so he had to just find a pair behind the scenes. Like, if you didn't get your outfit when you were in gym or PE, then you'd have to just wear the communal one.
See, we didn't have that in my school. If you did that, you got like punished for it. Like, it was the kind of thing where you're like, all right, you get a 0 for the day, kind of thing. You just don't participate.
Well, his one was definitely a punishment.
Yeah, that looked like that. I mean, if you were to tell me that was not any kind of ring gear and that was a dare that was told ahead of time of like, hey, you can't go out there wearing like Under Armour, like the type of stuff that you put on when you're living in like the Alaskan wilderness and you got to triple up on layers to make sure that you keep the body heat in, some kind of thermal kind of stuff, I'd buy it, because that did not look like. If that was a conscious decision, don't ever make that decision again.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So Ricochet beats him, and then we move into Firefly Funhouse. I didn't find it all that fun. Huskus apparently is like super German now. He's like Uter from The Simpsons, where he's like obsessed with chocolate and has that accent.
I
remember that being a thing.
I kind of picture him more as the guy from the kid from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The German kid, yeah.
I haven't seen it in so many years. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, but Augustus, Augustus Gloop.
Yeah, that's it.
And so it wasn't the most memorable or exciting Firefly Funhouse I've seen, but it does its job. It got me more excited about that match than anything Seth said. So
we had Cedric Alexander fail for the 10th time against AJ Styles for the United States Championship. Because they just want to keep doing that.
It was a good match, but it was just it was the same good match that we've seen from these guys over the last couple of months.
It's almost as if they booked it like they were house shows where you can get away with that.
Yeah. So it was a lot more high octane than maybe you were expecting, and a lot of people seemed to be expecting that Cedric was going to win. They were very much buying into the near falls, which is a good thing. So I can't say anything negative about the match because the match is good, but it's quite clear that should really be the end for Cedric at this point.
Mm-hmm. At least for the United States title.
Yeah. And maybe he'll move over to SmackDown or whatever in the draft.
Yeah, I could see them trading Ali and Cedric or something like that.
Mm.
Kind of depends. Well, if Paul Heyman supposedly is really into Cedric, then maybe they won't. But I don't know, we'll see. Then we moved on to Lacey Evans versus Natalya, and Lacey Evans somehow wins a match of quote-unquote pulling the tights, even though she couldn't grab a hold of them.
Yeah. This match wasn't as good.
No, this is not the right thing to follow it up with, and it's a shame.
It got more of a crowd reaction than I was expecting it to, which is a good thing. But I don't think Lacey Evans is that good in the ring. And even if she's okay, she hasn't improved that much. And Natalya's obviously very technically proficient, but she's just not exciting. And she's never really been exciting.
Nah, I kind of agree with that. We did some other bullshit here and there. We got like John Cena's got a new charity that's great called Fit Ops. Check that out if you want to take part in that. We got more recap stuff about Brock Lesnar. By the way, if you don't know by now, after the 20,000th time that we've talked about it, he's going to be on SmackDown, that kind of thing. Maria clarifies Rusev's not the father of the kid. Sasha does her thing. Anything before that main event that you feel like we need to talk about?
Nah, nothing really sticks out. It was again just a load of talking and BS before the main event segment, which I think they really tried to bookend this show with one thing that really worked and one thing which has got a lot more of a mixed reaction. Let's say.
It was a load, all right.
Yeah.
It's a good way to phrase that. It's Seth Rollins against Rusev, which I like Rusev, but I gotta feel like you watch that episode and you go into it, and if you're the type of person who's like, I'm kind of interested in seeing Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins, and then 6 minutes into the episode they say, no, fuck you, we're going to do something else, then you go, ooh, well, it's not going to be that match, but what are we going to get? Are we going to get CM Punk? Are we going to get John Morrison? Rusev is actually just going to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I like Rusev as well, but that announcement would certainly make it fall flat.
Yeah, they built that up, and then they had that whole idea of like they got some kind of a tease with the limo, and you know.
Well, that was the most obnoxious thing about. I know we've already spoken about the commercials, but you go to a commercial with 10 minutes left, and you come back with like 5 minutes left of the show. It's like, or it was like I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes left. It's like, why are you cutting away now?
Mm-hmm.
Have you somehow managed to fuck this up so badly in terms of production wise that you have to have this last advert segment in the middle of your main event for the Universal Championship
in an impromptu match?
Yeah,
that was supposed to be one of the big selling points on your premiere.
We don't even get a finish.
Yeah, we don't get a finish, and it's not because both their shoulders were on the mat or it was a double DQ or something. It's because their thing now is referee loses control because I can't focus on one thing at the same time. And you got Bobby Lashley coming out. And that's your big fucking surprise. And then Lana comes out and they start making out, and Rusev stands there and stares. And then Bray Wyatt comes out and attacks Seth Rollins because we can only do that. It's the only way we can finish Monday Night Raw for the past 4 weeks.
I guess there are worse ways to spend your time off than. I mean, it worked for Lita and Edge, right? So do that with Bobby Lashley and Lana. It's so crass. This type of, it's so Heyman, this storyline. I'll just put it that way. It's got Heyman's fingerprints all over it.
I'm not liking it already. I don't like the idea that Bobby Lashley came back and his storyline is I'm fucking your wife to Rusev. I can't get invested in it.
Well, it's just the weird thing about it, because you know that in real life, and I know obviously you try and keep the kayfabe separated and all that side of stuff, but Lana and Rusev are married in real life, and you know that Bobby Lashley is married to Crystal Marshall, I think.
I think that they divorced.
Oh, all right. Well, that's even more dangerous because you know how they sort of how the potential it is for, if you just start a relationship with someone on screen, how that can morph into something beyond. I'm almost certain that won't happen, but it's like I wouldn't, if I was Rusev, I'd never even risk that type of thing. But I think he's probably content enough or confident enough in the security of his marriage that doesn't matter. But I don't see the point of it.
No, I don't either, because it's like...
What, do you need two cucking storylines ongoing on Raw at this point in time? It's not even like one's on Raw and one's on SmackDown. They're both on Raw.
And why does it need to be this like soap opera element of you're sleeping with my wife and all that? The last time that they tried this with the whole Lana and Rusev thing, it bombed terribly.
Yeah, I mean, and that was before we even knew that they were like together. I mean, we had an inkling, obviously, and there was probably some understanding, but they didn't get engaged until like far into that storyline.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why that bombed.
Oh yeah, obviously, but I mean, it's a lasting image, and it's going to be the main thing that people are going to be talking about coming out of this episode. Not the Fiend attack, which maybe people were thinking, which looks hokey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why it's hokey is not because it's the Fiend attacking and the Fiend's in the mask and all that other stuff. It's hokey because Seth Rollins is petrified.
Yeah, he's hamming it up way too much. It's all like, oh my god, I'm so fucking scared.
It's like he thinks he's legitimately dealing with a monster.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know we want to like suspend disbelief in a wrestling world where you have like the Undertaker and Kane and a load of other supernatural beings. It is just a guy in a mask.
Yeah, like realistically,
You should be
again,
intimidated by him. You should be, I wouldn't say scared, but you should be intimidated and maybe like confused and unaware about what he's going to do. But you shouldn't be petrified of the man.
there's a certain level of suspension of disbelief with like characters and being like, okay, well, we all know that the Undertaker is not some immortal wizard type thing and stuff like that, but they humanized him more, and he's a guy that likes to play mind games. And then that's like, okay, you can get behind that. Certain people are like, I'm going to have this particular tattoo and it's going to make me look freaky on my face or something. And you're like, you want to dress up like the goth style is supposed to be intimidating to a certain extent. And Bray Wyatt is like, yeah, you used to be Husky Harris. And you're in a pro wrestling company. It's not supposed to be anything other than the fact that this guy, whether he's some undead fucking monster whatever thing, he's at the end of the day stepping into a ring to wrestle. And whatever mind games he's got going on, you might as well say, all right, at the end of that, take it all off, put on your singlet and your ear guard material, your headgear, and grapple. You know, like it's silly, and I don't know. I don't dig it, and I think that it's too over the top for every week. They just have been doing the same thing, and what a lame duck ending too. That it's like we're gonna build up this whole. Not like if they would have done the Rey Mysterio thing, I still think that it really wouldn't have worked out all that well, because what I was expecting was Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins would have a really good match and Seth Rollins would look like he was winning, or he would actually win, and then Bray Wyatt would come out and attack him. The end. So I didn't expect much. But they threw out this idea of the Lesnar thing changing things up, and then it became like, oh, now maybe they have this cool plan. And the plan was just Rusev in a no contest and setting up the Lashley's fucking Lana and the Fiend attacks again. That's it? That's all you can think of?
Yeah, I don't know why is the big deal that's coming out of this episode of Raw that Lashley's fucking Lana? Like, why does that need to be the big storyline coming out of it? That is, I mean, I know I said like that's so Heyman, that type of thing, but it's very, you know, it's very reality TV, not reality TV, but like trashy soap opera, like you said, content of, okay, well, the mystery all along that why did Rusev come back without Lana? Well, actually, did Rusev know? I guess this would be the things that get discovered, like, because Rusev seemed like he was unhappy with Lana beforehand, so did he know that that Bobby Lashley was with Lana, and that's why he wasn't so upset about it? That's why he didn't, like, scream or get angry or chase after them, because he was aware of this happening? Like, I guess that'll be the stuff that will get fleshed out over time, but it's just, yeah, I'm not too keen on the whole thing. And beyond the other thing, it was gross. Because they were, like, they couldn't have been, like, closer doing this stuff. Like, that was the epitome of the, like, Edge and Lita sex celebration era type thing.
Yeah, I'm just not feeling this, and for this to be the premiere thing, and they're making a big deal about, like, the big changes and all that, I feel like this was a regular episode of Monday Night Raw that they built up to make it seem like they did more crazy stuff. And at the end, most of what they did was basically what we've seen before. Like, they didn't really change up all that much of, like, the presentation, and lots of fucking commercials, which I'm never going to be a big fan of. Lots of misdirection of not knowing necessarily where you're going. Not a matter of like, well, we got you and it's this big twist. It's more of, we don't know where we're going. That's the misdirection. No build for Hell in a Cell other than just beating you with that drum of these two matches are happening from Raw. That is it. That's all they're caring about. And if this is supposed to be the thing that's like a revamp, I don't think it did it. Like you said, the main thing coming out of this is Lashley is fucking Lana. I don't really care about that storyline. So if you're hinging all on that, you lost me.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. I think it was a very hot opening 15 minutes, and a very confusing but shocking, I guess, last 5 minutes. And everything else in there was just another meh episode of Raw.
Mm-hmm.
I think the previous couple of weeks' episodes of Raw has actually been better than this one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't remember like the specifics, but this was absurdly mediocre.
Yeah.
If it wasn't being weird and just kind of stupid.
Like, I think I said in the Mega Mania, I feel like I might have been more entertained for the entire thing if it had just been the 15-minute clip of Brock Lesnar beating up Dominic and Rey Mysterio repeated 11 times after the initial time it happened. Because I'm like watching a clip of it now, and I'm thinking, yeah, this was actually a lot of fun. I'll watch this again, but not really anything else.
No, like that Becky and Sasha thing, that didn't sell me anymore on it. The matches were like, the only really good match out of the bunch was Cedric and Styles, and we've seen it before, and it's just kind of beating that drum again. And I'd go on a limb and say this was a failure of an episode for the most part.
I probably wouldn't go as far as a failure, but I'd say at most it's a 5 out of 10.
Well, I want to know what everybody else has to say. This is a long episode of the Hot Tags because that's the way that this week is working. Lots of things happening, and we're going to even just scratch the surface of that because a whole bunch more is happening. Thankfully, tomorrow is not going to be, well, now I'm going to jinx it by saying tomorrow is not going to be too crazy. But Wednesday, we will be doing all the stuff that's happening on like the NXT side of things on smarkandmoment.com. We will also be recording our Hell in a Cell predictions of whatever we have that we can give our predictions for. And we're not going to be doing some kind of like update podcast after SmackDown or something like that. I can't schedule the time to do that. And going forward, I don't know how that's going to play out and if there's going to be issues when it comes to that. But I'm kind of hoping at the very least that they have so much on their plate this week that that's one of the reasons why they didn't spend 15 minutes to just plan out the rest of the Hell in a Cell card and announce it to everybody in their multitude of different ways that they could have done it and all the hours of television that they could have done it. No excuses, but at least if it's got all that stuff happening this week, maybe by the time we get around to Crown Jewel, it won't be that we're waiting until Friday to do like the matches and stuff. But we'll do that. SmackDown will happen. Then it'll be Sunday and Hell in a Cell will happen and we'll do our post show. And then we'll start the whole thing all over again on Monday Night Raw and see if they've learned any lessons from this week. Probably not. Any other plugs you want to toss out there?
Just want to toss out that 2001 Wrestling Odyssey, I guess, is the big one for me. I spoke about it a bit earlier, but that is our retro podcast, as it were, where we go back in time to the year 2001. This is a big week for professional wrestling. 2019 changing. 18 years ago was a big year where WCW died, ECW died, WWF took the full monopoly of the professional wrestling. We'll be doing our October edition, recording that and publishing it sometime in October, because it's just about October now. So we'll go through that. It'll be No Mercy 2001 and also World Wrestling All-Stars, which was a short-lived promotion from the early 2000s. We'll be checking out their first show as well. So check that out. Check out all the previous episodes we've got. Follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out all the weekly articles on smarkandmoment.com. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for me.
Well, rabbit, everybody. It's October 1st, so hopefully this is the start of some great new things, and just strap yourselves in and take the ride with us because we've got plenty coming your way. So leave your comments below. Tell us what you think about all this stuff, and stay tuned to the channel. Subscribe if you haven't done that already. Ring that little bell. Get notified of whenever we've got things posted, all like that. And we will see you next time. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.